Mary, the baby doesn't come out of your navel. Let me tell you how it is.
Sex. We've been doing it the same way for a long time.
Everybody tells us we should talk about sex to our children, but nobody tells us just how.
I feel so comfortable with you. I feel like I can take my shoes off.
Miss Jensen, is it true that people can tell when you're menstruating?
No, it isn't. But you should be more careful than ever about personal cleanliness and daintiness. Change your underwear more often, and be sure and use a deodorant. And pay more attention to your hair and your nails, and plan to wear your prettiest dress. In other words, be your most attractive self.
Those were a few scenes from classroom films your grandparents probably watched, or pretended to watch while they were passing notes. Those scrap of paper exchanges that predated texting. But when did sex education first come to American classrooms? We're a strange and persnickety culture, and often social causes find champions in groups which will become the cause's own future opposition. Advocating for sex education started within conservative Christian communities in the late 19th century. This clipping from a St. Paul, Minnesota paper dated November 11, 1898, describes sex education classes taught in some Minnesota high schools. The curriculum was developed by a woman known only as Mrs. Scoville. This article reports on her lecture at a Purity conference, where Mrs. Scoville discussed how her classes benefited students. She advocated classes be taught in grade school as well. Not everyone was so keen on teaching sex education to just anyone. This clipping from the same period describes a lecture by Dr. G. Stanley Hall. He warned of educating women in the technicalities of sex. This, he seemed to think, was a threat to the species. Apparently, his study showed that the more women knew about sex, the longer they put off having children. He claimed that he had mathematically proven that if all women were educated about sex, the species would die out. Shortly before World War I, sex education was a featured topic at the 1913 International School Congress. The article notes that at previous conferences, the subject of sex education was forbidden. After World War II, sex education began to be shaped by its modern debate of whether sex should be taught in the home or in the school. One state health official said he would love it if there could be sex education in classrooms, but there's just not enough people qualified to teach it. Most teachers were single at that time, and the health official said that any knowledge a single teacher would have of sex would either be academic or illicit. This article appeared in newspapers all over the country in 1943. It outlines sexual education curriculum in various states. The emphasis was on marriage, and of course, homosexuality, birth control, and abortion were illegal in most places. By the 1960s, a heavy emphasis was placed on avoiding homosexuality. This last clip from a bizarre classroom movie equates homosexuality with pedophilia. Watch how the evil, bald homosexual seduces the nice, naive young boy.
Jimmy hadn't enjoyed himself so much in a long time. Then during lunch, Ralph showed him some pornographic pictures. Jimmy knew he shouldn't be interested, but, well, he was curious. What Jimmy didn't know was that Ralph was sick. A sickness that was not visible like smallpox, but no less dangerous and contagious, a sickness of the mind. You see, Ralph was a homosexual, a person who demands an intimate relationship with members of their own sex.
That's the end of this episode of Sex, a History. Join us again as we delve into our past to show that though laws, attitudes, and emphases change, once we're in the bedroom, we've been doing it the same way for a long time. Check out our G+ page for frequent updates with images, videos, and news from our collective sexual past.